Hey guys, I've been asking some of our users on our Discord server to post some hands that they've taken video of, usually streamers, where they had some strategic questions. And so today I'm going to go over some hands and talk to you guys about what I would do and why. All right, so we're playing 100 NL. Our hero has sevens in the hijack. Going to be an easy open, I assume. And we have 200 big blinds, but everybody else at the table has 100. So we'll be playing this 100 big blinds deep. And we get called in two spots and see this 6 high flop. So I'll pause right here. So generally, we don't want to be doing a lot of c-betting on 4, 5, 6. The reason for that is, as the pre-flop raiser, we have a lot of these high cards, high pairs. And well, we'll still open with 4, 4. We'll still open with 6, 6. We'll still open with 7, 8 suited. We have more of those high cards and high pairs than our opponents do. First of all, because they would have 3-bet hands like aces and kings, ace king, ace queen, and some similar hands. But also because the big blind coming in last act, closing the action for 1.5 big blinds more, is going to be able to get in there with some like 5-4 suited that we might not open, 6-4 suited, maybe some. I mean, it depends how loose he is, but maybe some offsuit connectors. And if he does come in with offsuit connectors, he's going to have way more of those than we are in terms of like hands that hit this board. Because combinatorically, it's a lot easier to be dealt 8-7 offsuit than it is 8-7 suited. Anyways, so we shouldn't do a lot of c-betting here on this board. However, sevens benefit so much. First of all, we have a good hand. We can get some value from like ace-6 suited, which we're doing really well against. But also we can get a lot of protection. There are a ton of overcards that can hit that make our hand a lot weaker. And we would rather take the pot down now. And if we run into a hand like 6-6 or we run into tens that just calls us, we have a lot of equity to improve. So it's not costing us that much to fire the c-bet out. So I would go ahead and bet with this hand. I wouldn't be doing a lot of betting in general. And so usually in a spot where I'm not betting very frequently, I'll go with like a kind of bigger sizing, which it looks like he's going a little over half pot. So I like this play all around, but I would say be cautious about betting too frequently here. And so that includes checking a lot of hands like aces, kings, of course, some missed hands like ace king. So we get check raised, and I think we have a pretty easy call to start. Obviously, if he's bluffing, we still need some protection, but if he's not bluffing, we're not in great shape, but we can take this turn in position. And I do think that if we call and we hit something on the turn, like a straight specifically, if he was bluffing the flop with like a king, queen of diamonds type hand, he'll continue bluffing on those straightening turns. Deuce is a card that I expect him to keep bluffing on. So I would call here once again. We're only beating a bluff. I don't think many players are going to take this line with like ace-6 suited, 7-6. 7-6 maybe, but obviously we block 7-6 pretty hard. But we're getting like 3-1. We have an open ender. If he has a set, we have extra outs with our 2 set outs as well. So it's hard for us to be in terrible shape. So I think easy call on the turn. And really interesting spot here. We get check 2 on the river. And we have about 2/3 pot remaining. And I think this is an excellent, hold on. I think this is an excellent bluff candidate. The thing is, hearts got there. The 9 is connected to the 4, 5, 6, but it doesn't actually bring in any straights. So a lot of people look at this river and they'll say, oh, everything got there, so I have to have something so I can bluff. But in reality, only hearts got there. And then of course, hands that we were slow playing earlier, or like, I mean, a set is, quote unquote, a slow play. Wasn't the nuts, but I think we have to be a little bit careful. And so the first question I ask myself in these spots is, how many worse hands than this can I have? So we have sevens. Would I play this way with ace-7 of diamonds? Maybe, probably. He can certainly expect me to, perhaps. Like ace-8, no way. 7-6, 7-5, yes. Although 7-5, I'm not opening pre here, but 7-6 suited, I would open pre. So I could have that, but that's kind of similar qualities to this hand. The my value bets will be sets and flushes, basically. I'm not sure how much I want to bet two pair here because, I mean, what we're really targeting with a two pair bet is a hand like 9-8 or 9-7 that he check raised flop with and then got there with the 9. And that's also, the prime candidate that we want to bluff when we have pocket sevens here. I think probably in practice, I would expect a lot of opponents to call too much with their sets. And because we block 9-7, we won't run into that many 9x hands. We'll run into 9-8. I don't know whether he plays the offsuit combos pre or not, but we'll run into 9-8, we'll run into some 9-7. And otherwise, I think we're looking at occasional flushes, a lot of sets, some straights, and in my experience, the average opponent just isn't folding enough of those hands. So it's a spot where, yes, we don't have a lot of very weak hands, and so a bluff would get a lot of credit, but we need to know that our opponent is capable of giving that credit and capable of making a big fold before we bluff here. So I would go ahead and check back and take this showdown value. I totally understand our hero wanting to bluff here because, like I said, everything quote unquote got there. The 8 of hearts, which obviously completes our hand, would be a different story because more stuff actually got there. But yeah, the 9 only brings the flush draw. We take it down, and well played hand. I think that in terms of like, if we're playing that against a really good opponent, I think it's important that we bluff some hands like this. We don't know how good this opponent was, but well played hand. All right, so we're picking up this hand in the middle of the action. This hand starts on the turn. He was 3-bet pre, called, which is fine, and villain bet small on the flop. We called, so now he's facing this turn bet of half pot. We have king, queen, queen, 8, spades. Very easy call here on the turn. We're only beating bluffs, but there are plenty of those. And we have, against aces, for example, we have 2 queens, we have 2 8s, and we have our spades to improve. So very easy call. And our hero's asking if we should shove this river when we get check 2. Spoiler alert if you're watching at the speed that I am. So we do end up getting check 2 on the ace river. So ace rivers in 3-bet pots and PLO are kind of weird because there's this, at lower stakes, there are a lot of players who just only 3-bet aces. And that's true in higher stakes. There are certain players that only do that. But then if people are 3-betting properly and much wider, it actually, the kind of perception of how often the 3-better is supposed to have aces is way overblown in a lot of people's minds. And so I think a lot of play is kind of predicated on the idea that the 3-better is representing aces. So I think that there are a lot of psychological hurdles to keep in mind or try to get past when you do see an ace on the board, or there is a board that's favorable for aces. It's easy to kind of like check too often and play too scared as the player who's not the 3-better, and it's easy to over bluff and play too aggressively as the player who is the 3-better. Anyways, in this spot, we get to the river, and I think that, like, had our opponent shoved, I think we just have to call. Our hand's too good. In terms of just hand strength, he could shove with worse flushes, and we have some blockers to like 8-8. Not that that's very common, but is what it is. And usually if you're going to call a value shove and you get check 2, it's often, or rather call a shove because you have a very good hand. It's often a good idea to value shove yourself when check 2. Not always, but often. And here, I think that I would expect 2 things. One works for us, one works against. The one that works for us is I think when this ace hits, our opponent is not going to expect us to bluff because he's the one representing aces. So what that means, first of all, is he's going to shove into us with aces very often. So I don't think he's checking aces very often. I think we have the best hand almost always. On the other side, I think he's not going to expect us to bluff here very often, nor for us to have many bluffs given the action. We called flop, we called 3-bet, called flop, called turn, and the turn bet was half potted, sizable on a relatively dry board. So we don't have a lot of bluffing candidates So I don't think he's going to make a lot of hero calls. Our job then is to weigh those two factors. You know, how often is he going to have checked with aces, which I think is a small percentage, and then how often is he going to call with a hand that we beat, which is also a small percentage. We have to figure out which of those is higher likelihood. And I think that the chance that he checked aces is low enough that I would rather go for this value shove and let him figure out what to call with. So I do think we need to shove this river for value. And our hero does end up checking back. Probably, you know, thinking through similar things, certainly considering shoving. All right, we'll find one more hand. All right. If our hero missing no, starts in the small blind with nines, goes ahead and 3-bets, gets 2 callers. So we 3-bet the button open, we get cold called by the big blind, we get cold called, or called, overcalled by the button. Ace high flop. It's fine to fire out a small c-bet here, but it's also fine not to. Our hand, if best, needs a lot of protection. If it's not the best hand, obviously we're in pretty bad shape. We have the range advantage on the ace high flop, so like going with a very frequent small c-bet strategy can't be that bad. Clearing up some equity, we do have backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, which also blocks some hands like 9-8 of hearts, 10-9 of hearts that are never folding, which works nicely for us because even though we have the best hand against a hand like, you know, 10-9 of hearts, let's say we had 9 of clubs, 9 of spades, even though we have the best hand against that, has a lot of equity and it's probably going to take the pot away later from us. So it is good to block those hands, make it harder for our opponents to have them. So our hero does decide to bet third pot, gets called by the big blind. Turn is a king, and we have about 2 and a little X pot behind. I'd just be check folding here, giving up, which our hero does. River ace, I guess he's considering block betting to get value from like 8s or 7x. I would just check for sure. This guy cold called a 3-bet, so I expected a lot of ace X. And we do face a bet of 4 into 7, and I do not like this call. So our hero calls, he gets shown 6-4, which I don't know what the villain was doing. I guess he's value betting 2 pair. I don't know, but I don't like the call. I'm surprised to have seen the 6-4 hand, but I mean, first we'll talk about the call, then we'll talk about the 6-4. The call, the problem is when you call there, you're hoping to pick off bluffs that were missed draws that first of all called flop but didn't bet the turn. Also, they cold called a 3-bet, and a lot of those hands are going to be like ace 10 suited, ace jack suited, maybe ace queen off that doesn't want a 4-bet, maybe ace king off that doesn't want a 4-bet because it's too afraid. And so you have to expect, unless you have strong reads on an opponent, that they have pretty tight calling range there and not a lot of candidates to bluff with. Then we have 9-9 with the 9 of hearts, which means that we block well, a few different flush draws, and we blocked 2 combos of 9-8 suited that were open-enders. And those are really the main draws our opponent's going to have. Of course, you can have like the king-queen of hearts, although that got there with the king, the queen-jack of hearts, and the queen-10 and jack-10 of hearts, but that's like very, very few hands. So I think he ends up with very few potential bluffs. I don't think we can call there. I just think we get shown an ace really frequently. As far as the 6-4 bet, it's really not good, nonsensical, because if you're trying to get value, you're not going to. If you're trying to bluff, yes, you would have made me fold pocket 9s, but you're going to be, when you're risking that much, you're going to run into just like king X or ace X that's never folding, or you're going to get folds from hands like jack 10 that just 3-bet and stabbed once and gave up. So you actually have some showdown value. I would take that hand to showdown, and the bluffs that I would choose would be those missed draws that I played that way. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed me talking a little bit of strategy as I I would like to make some more of these videos, and in order to do so, I definitely would like, first of all, people to hop into our Discord and submit hands like these people have, so that I have some hands to review. And you can ask, maybe we'll post some stuff in the comments or in the description below on how you can join our Discord. Of course, you then need to hop on runotonce.eu and play some hands. And also I'd like to hear in the comments, what you liked and didn't like, what I could improve as, I've made a lot of poker training videos, but I haven't made a lot of YouTube videos. And so it's new to me. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. And I'll see you next time. This is Phil Galfond for Run It Once. Take care.